and I can't get married to you with how I feel. It would be a mistake. The waterworks started immediately, and even Evelyn did that thing with her mouth that looks like a perch trying to suck air. There were wails from Sarah, accusations of not loving her, appeals to my sense of duty, to the loss of money, the inconvenience to all our friends, the embarrassment of it all. It was frankly nothing I hadn't already thought about, but it definitely felt different hearing Sarah say it through body-racking sobs. It was at this point I probably made a big mistake. In an effort to convince Sarah of the finality of it all, I said, "Look, I already canceled the honeymoon. It's not happening." I knew it was a bomb the second it left my mouth, and the explosion was damn near immediate. Evelyn, to her credit, had always been pretty quick on the uptake, which is probably how she had managed to fool her husband for so long. I could almost see the realization dawning on her when she put it all together with my appearance at the bar earlier in the evening. She screamed, "You mother effer!" and flew across the room at me. Now, I'm not a huge guy, but I'm no slouch either. But the force that Evelyn flung herself at me had me staggering backwards, and I barely had enough time to get my hands up before she started raking my face. I almost lost the phone I still had in my hand, but still managed to push her away and say very loudly, "Evelyn, get off me! Sarah, get your sister under control!" Evelyn made another lunge for me, but surprisingly Sarah did exactly what I asked her to, and wrapped her arms around her sister's waist and held her in place. I looked at Evelyn and yelled, "Get out of here right now or I am calling the police," holding my phone up for emphasis. Sarah asked both of us to calm down. She said to me, "Evelyn doesn't have anywhere to go right now, and Marty took her car keys." I did not care. I was 100% through with Evelyn, and I was going to make sure she knew it. I marched into my home office and locked the door and dialed the police. I told them I had been attacked by my fiancé's sister and had locked myself in my office, and I feared for my life. I even told them that I had recorded the entire altercation on my phone. Just as I was finishing up my conversation, Sarah comes knocking on the door. "Please come out, we need to talk about this. And please, I love you, don't do this. We don't need to do this." And even, Evelyn is sorry, she wants to apologize. I'm pretty sure that last one was a lie, but Sarah was obviously losing it. I didn't answer her, and her attempts to cajole me out of the office ended probably right when the police rocked up to our front door. I could hear Sarah talking to them, and I decided to come out. The cops were two males. One of them looked younger than me, maybe around Sarah's age, and the other one looked older and more annoyed about life in general. I introduced myself, pointed at Evelyn, stating that she attacked me, and offered to show the cops the recording I made. The younger one asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. He asked me again if I wanted to press charges. I said yes again. At this point, both cops looked at each other, and before the young cop could open his mouth again, I said, "Yes, I want to press charges. I have video evidence and this is going to court, or else I'm going to call up your boss and ask him to come down and do it himself." Honestly, at this point, I was getting pretty hot under the collar, and while I get what these guys were thinking, I don't agree with it at all. Facts are facts. Sure, I might not be bleeding out on the floor, but Evelyn attacked me in my own home, and I wanted her gone. Thankfully, the situation didn't immediately escalate, and the two officers handcuffed Evelyn and put her in the back of the patrol car. She was squealing and crying like some sort of gibbering maniac the entire time. Sarah wasn't much better. She just kept going, "No, please no," over and over again. At this point, the younger cop circled back and asked us if everything was okay here. I just told them I was going to bed. He asked Sarah again, and she didn't immediately answer, so he goes, "Is everything okay here, ma'am?" It was clear what he was fishing for. At this point, I really disliked this guy, but I bit my lip. Sarah finally realized that the cop was addressing her, and she just nodded at him. Obviously, the guy is not satisfied with this, and starts to ask her again, at which point I interject and say, "If you want to go on a fishing expedition, you might want to do it over there on the lawn, where my doorbell camera isn't recording you." I think at this point, I had pushed my luck with this guy one too many times, but what could I do? I think I was probably about 30 seconds from getting the cuffs slapped on me, until his partner came up and basically pulled him away. He was an older man, probably in his late 50s, and probably didn't want to process 2 arrests right at the beginning of his shift, especially when one of them was obviously going to be more trouble than it was worth. I'm pretty sure he talked him out of it, and they left, carrying Evelyn away, and hopefully out of my life forever. The next day was by far the weirdest day of my life. I woke, and Sarah was still home. She had cleaned the house from top to bottom. When she saw me, she sort of hovered out of immediate range, not quite engaging, but looking like she wanted to say something. I took a deep breath and told her we needed to finish talking. She tried to sit next to me on the couch, and I thought about rebuffing her, but I didn't. We were not getting married, but I didn't need to act like I hated her, because truthfully, I didn't. I was disappointed in her, decently disgusted by some of the things I had read in her text exchanges between her sister, but we were both hurting here, and I didn't want to make it any worse, or escalate things to a point where life could get any more complicated than it already was. It took some more convincing on my part for Sarah to truly and fully believe the wedding was off. She was a wreck. I think she was hyperventilating a few times. Finally, she asked the serious question, "What about us?" I didn't have an answer for Sarah in that moment. I just didn't know, and I told her so. I said I read all those text messages, and it showed me a side of her that I didn't know existed, and that I wasn't certain about her, or our relationship anymore. I said I couldn't understand why she would go along with Evelyn putting down Marty and joining in, and even egging her on and cheating on not only him, but their daughter too. She just kept saying, I know, it was wrong, I know. I asked her for an explanation, but she couldn't provide one. She just said that she got carried away and that she had to choose her sister. I told her that I thought a good sister was someone who kept you on the straight and narrow and didn't give you a free pass to do that. She agreed with me and said that she would do better, but that Evelyn had always been the boss when they were kids, and she was always the follower. Now here is where I get the second major shock of my life in like 48 hours. Sarah says to me, "It's not fair. It's not fair." "What's not fair?" I ask her. "You were texting that stupid wife Mandy on Instagram last year and I got over it. I was so hurt, but I got over it. Why can't you get over this?" "Why? Huh? What? What the hell is she talking about? Who is this stupid wife Mandy?" Like I have no clue. I ask her if she was having a psychotic break. I'm protesting pretty loudly at this point, and Sarah is yelling at me through her tears, telling me that she saw the messages last year and that she decided to not confront me because I had stopped it. Evidently she had been checking my socials from my home computer when I am at work, which should have been really boring because I have only family and a couple of work friends on there. I try to make this case to her, offering to let her log into all my accounts and check for herself, but she's just calling me a liar and a creep and all sorts of crap. She starts throwing stuff at me, and so things are getting out of hand, and I tell her that if she throws one more thing, I'll have her taken out of this house just like her sister. She swears at me and stomps off to the master bedroom and slams the door. Now, at this point, I am so damn confused, I barely know what to think. I head into my office, fire up my desktop and type "stupid wife Mandy" into Google. Sure enough, there is an Instagram, a Twitter, a Reddit even, and of course, an OnlyFans. I click on one of the Instagram links, and up comes a post of an extremely honkered woman, like clearly pushing the limits of science and technology, and she's from Australia. My brother was staying with us last Christmas all the way from Australia. Guess who I told? Sure, go ahead and use my office computer to play games if you have jet lag. As far as I can tell, my brother, after his wife and kids went to sleep, logged into either Insta or OnlyFans and was probably paying money to text with this girl. What a great guy. Update 3. I decided to carry on with what I needed to do. First thing up was attempting to contact every person from my side that I had invited to the wedding that I had not yet informed about its cancellation. I called everyone and had to explain it to everyone, which took a long time. Because of this, it wasn't until late into the evening when I finally managed to contact everyone. After this was done, I thought about it and realized I had no idea when she left and sat down to eat and think about what to do with my brother Carl's situation. Carl and I have always been pretty close despite him being 13 years older than me. I respected him greatly for taking care of me when I was young. The idea that he had been texting with a girl who wasn't his wife, in my house, was something that I was still coming to grips with, and I needed to decide what to do. Talking to him about it was obvious, but at this point, given how much of a shambles my relationship with Sarah was, I didn't know if I cared about having him confess just for the sake of clearing my name. Was there anything to salvage anyway? I needed to, for my own sake of propriety, at least yell at him about this and convince him to stop. However, I wasn't sure if I was going to rat him out or not to my SEL Karen. It all depended on what he told me and if I believed him or not. I logged into Facebook and video called Carl, and he answered. We greeted each other, exchanged some pleasantries, and then I just sort of dove into it and asked him if he had been using my computer to chat to women on the internet when he was visiting me. Carl's face froze, and he leaned over out of frame of the camera. He was obviously closing his office door. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" he said to me. I swore under my breath and explained to Carl how Sarah had thought that his flirting was me since he used my computer. I explained that I wasn't happy to take the hit for him, and I asked him point blank if Karen knew about this or not. He waffled for a few seconds, stumbling over his words, and then looked a bit sheepish and said that no, Karen didn't know, and he'd prefer if it was kept that way. He went on to explain that their relationship had been pretty rough since their youngest was born 4 years ago, mainly in the bedroom department. Carl had always been a pretty private person, especially when it came to intimate details, or at least he had always been that way when talking to his much younger baby brother. However, this time, he just let it all lay out. Things had been bad. He had been tired of getting rejected. Karen was always tired no matter what he did, or how much he helped out around the house. Eventually, this led to problems on his side, some sort of performance anxiety, on the few occasions where Karen would actually feel up for some bedroom fun, and things just got worse from there. Basically, he said, there's no amount of socks picked up, laundry folded, dishes washed, or time spent minding children that would get me anything. It was just not happening, so I started to spend time in my office at night, working. He even did the finger quotes when saying this. Evidently, his working at night turned into a pretty hardcore dependency on OnlyFans sites, which, given the relative privacy he had in his office for legitimate work, spiraled out of control pretty quickly. I asked him if he was still doing it, and he swore up and down that he wasn't. I thought I believed him when he said it. He seemed to be sincere, but I just had this feeling in the back of my skull that something was off. Now, the problem I faced was pretty complex here. First, if I wanted to clear my name, then I would have to get my brother to tell Sarah that it was him all along. However, if he did that, then there was no guarantee that Sarah wouldn't spitefully inform Karen. I personally thought it would be best if Karen knew, but at the same time, I didn't know if I felt comfortable potentially dropping a nuke on my brother's marriage over something he not only said he stopped, but is in this sort of moral gray area for me. I didn't have an answer right away as to what to do, but I did urge him to tell his wife about this and to get into marriage counseling. He said that they actually had been going for the last 6 months, and while it was helpful, what had really helped him was getting a prescription for some generic blue bedroom pill. I actually did a spit take at that, neatly spraying my computer screen with water. He told me that they had been trying to make sure they have intimate time at least a couple of times a week, and the pill had cured him of his performance anxiety to the point where now they were both looking forward to spending time together after the kids went to bed. The general gist of this was something along the lines of, "Hey, this is actually going in the right direction now. Please don't screw this up for us." I really didn't want to be in this position, not just for the sake of Carl and Karen, but for my 2 nieces as well. And if what Carl was telling me was the truth, I could be tossing a firebomb into a relationship that was starting to mend. I was, after all, going to meet him in a couple of weeks in the flesh, and once I got him alone in a room and a few drinks into him, I was going to definitely get to the bottom of this. It seemed like the best course of action. Anyway, that night I went to bed early. I didn't see Sarah until the next morning. She looked haggard, like she had a distinct lack of sleep. I asked her where she had been, mostly out of habit. After all, we had been together for almost 6 years. She told me that she had gone down to the courthouse for Evelyn's arraignment to post bail, and that afterwards, she had driven her to her parents' house and spent the night. She made a point of telling me how horrible it was to have to explain to her parents that I had called off the wedding. I asked her if her parents knew the reason why, and she barked, "Of course they do." I tried to remain calm, but by this point in this ordeal, I was losing it. I bit back at her. "Are you going to move back there so that they have both girls at home now?" It was childish and petty, but the fact that she bailed Evelyn out of jail annoyed me to no end. "You don't need to be like this," she said, to which I said, "And you don't need to be Evelyn's underling." I could see Sarah visibly flinch when I said that to her. It obviously had struck a chord, and the corners of her eyes started to tear up, and I cooled my temper. We just sort of stood there, miles apart in the living room of our house, and didn't say anything for a good solid minute or two, until Sarah decided to continue talking. "Our parents are going to be here at 3. I actually face-palmed at this. I was about to go off on her for not consulting me on this, but decided that was just my own ego. After all, I did need to sit down with them and work out the details around the wedding and whatever remaining deposit we had, and I needed to, at least once, face-to-face explain to everyone why it wasn't happening. 3 p.m. came, and so did our parents. The next 3 hours were grueling. No one was happy. The best support I could get came unsurprisingly from my own parents, but even that was tempered. Eventually, we worked out a decent deal in regards to the wedding. We would try to get back whatever money we could, split it back, however it was contributed, and then eat whatever losses there were communally. However, when it came to the subject of the house, Sarah vehemently objected to my idea of paying back her or her parents for the deposit. Basically, she didn't intend to move. Sarah and I hadn't really talked about the us living together situation in too much detail. The fact that I even brought up settling the house equity seemed to shock her, because the implication here is that I expect her to move out of our home. She threw a fit, and I don't blame her. I should have settled our relationship status with her first, before trying to negotiate a payment plan with her parents. It really tipped my hand to everyone about how I was feeling about our relationship, and while I think our parents expected it, or at least understood, Sarah was beside herself. She was absolutely not accepting of us breaking up over this, and she made it clear, "I am not moving out of my house, and we are not breaking up," she declared. And that's pretty much how my Sunday night ended. After our parents left, Sarah and I tried to talk it out some more, but we kept running in circles around each other, and I had to curb my natural inclination to run her down until we got a resolution. Truthfully, I was pretty damn tired as well, and I just wanted to turn off my brain. Believe it or not, we just ended up sitting on the couch and watching a movie together in silence until it was time to go to sleep. We left it there with a, "We'll talk about it more tomorrow," and retreated to our separate rooms. On Monday, I woke up to a large handwritten letter slid under the door from Sarah. I took a brief look at the first few pages and decided I would deal with it later and went to work. When I left, Sarah was still in bed. She must have been up late writing that letter. At work, I started calling vendors about the wedding. During the day, between making calls and doing work, I read Sarah's letter. It was a 20-page handwritten letter. The gist of it was that Sarah pressured by Evelyn to go with the affair, and that she has always been such a people-pleaser that she found it extremely hard to say no to Evelyn. I reflected on this a lot, because truthfully, when I look back at our relationship with a more critical eye, I kind of think that Sarah was a bit too perfect of a girlfriend. What I mean by that is, she never disagreed with me, never picked her plans over mine, or even really advocated too strongly against anything I wanted to do. She went out of her way to make herself appear useful, and all around acted more or less like a yes woman in our relationship. I mean, we had never even so much as had a minor disagreement in 6 years, let alone a full-blown argument until now. It sounds great from a relationship standpoint, until of course, it's not. I couldn't shake this feeling that Sarah has this deep-seated insecurity and need to make people happy. When I start looking at it this way, a lot of things make sense to me, and I start to realize that despite being with Sarah for for 6 years. I don't actually know her that well. It's like she's put up this image around her which is really just a mirror, a reflection of whatever she thinks people want to see, and in the case of our relationship, she's more or less been acting my role of the perfect girlfriend, while never really letting me inside to see who she is as a person. Hell, I can't even say that what I saw in those text messages is the real Sarah, because it's almost certainly just another reflection, this time of Evelyn, and all her warts and faults. This may sound weird, but it's like, we are in this unequal relationship, whereas maybe she loves me for who I am, and how I wear my thoughts on my face, and my heart on my sleeve, but maybe I only love her for the mirror she is holding up to my face. That night we talked more about this specifically. The conclusion that we came to is that she needs help. She's a grown woman who is too scared to displease anyone, lest she face her sister's wrath, or her parents' disapproval, or the loss of love from the ones she loves. This is no way to have a relationship, and I can say that I feel much more confident and assured that my decision to call off the wedding was the correct one. In fact, it could not be any more correct. That night, after our talk, I went to bed with much less angst than I had in a few days.